The president met with members of his national security team on Thursday to discuss evacuations on the ground. This was the chaotic scene at the airport in Kabul earlier.
Hello, today I present to you an extremely attractive application for music lovers. It's completely free. You can listen to music online or download unlimited music to use whenever you don't have internet. The powerful search function helps you find anything you want. Trust me. It's hard not to find what you're looking for because the search function is really powerful. Application download link is attached in the description of the video. I'm pretty sure you'll like it. Thanks.
This week, officials say 12,000 people have been evacuated since the end of July, but thousands more remain. And there's increasing pressure on the Biden administration to fly Americans and Afghan allies out to safety as quickly as possible. Meantime, Congress will be calling witnesses next week to ask questions about the Afghan government's rapid collapse. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang has the latest.
Overnight, U.S. forces launched tear gas to disperse crowds near the Kabul airport, and members of the Taliban fired shots into the air to break up the mob. With less than 2 weeks before President Biden's deadline to withdraw troops, Afghans are scrambling to flee, one desperate parent even passing a child over the wall, begging soldiers for help. The president is under mounting pressure to evacuate Afghan allies and every American who wants to leave.
If there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
But the military still plans to depart Afghanistan on August 31st for now.
If and when there's a decision to change that, then obviously that would require additional conversations with the Taliban.
The president also faces questions from his own party about the chaotic exit. Several congressional committees have called Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Secretary of State Antony Blinken to explain how the Taliban took over so quickly.
Why was it so easy? And when did we know and how? And if we did not know, why didn't we know that the Afghan security forces would not fight, did not have the will to fight?
Tonight, there is a new concern about a potential humanitarian crisis in Doha, where thousands of Afghan refugees will join the many already waiting to be processed. They face overcrowded conditions in triple-digit temperatures. Right now, there are no reports of the Taliban harassing Americans who are trying to get to the airport, but CBS News has learned that they have blocked some Afghans from traveling, even if they have the proper paperwork. The Pentagon says they're communicating with the Taliban about safe passage, and they are prepared to take action if needed. Lana?
Weijia, thank you. Meantime, President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, spoke to CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah Donnell. Sullivan explained how the administration is trying to ensure that it can reach every American in Afghanistan.
Is the president committed to extending the deadline in Afghanistan to make sure every American is out safely?
The president is committed to ensuring that every American who wants to leave Afghanistan gets out of Afghanistan. He believes that we can accomplish that by August 31st.
Exactly how many Americans are left behind in Afghanistan?
Well, Norah, the U.S. government doesn't actually know the precise answer to that question, and that's because we ask every American who comes to Afghanistan to register with the U.S. Embassy. But when people leave, they often don't deregister, and even some who come never register in the first place.
How can you make sure every American is out if you don't know how many Americans are in Afghanistan?
One is the entire database of Americans that we have in Afghanistan. And we can go to them through every means of contact we have and reach out and say, if you want to come home, if you want to get out, come to the airport. The second way is to broadcast through every means available, radio, television, the internet, to reach Americans so that they have the information they need to be able to come home.
Well, the clock is ticking. The deadline is approaching. It's just 12 days away. You think you can have all that buttoned up by then?
We can move thousands of people every single day between now and the end of the month. We have plenty more seats on flights than we believe that there are possibly Americans still in Afghanistan, and there is plenty of time to get to the airport. So, yes, we believe that over the course of the coming days, it is completely feasible for us.
Is there any indication that U.S. personnel are in danger if they're not out of Afghanistan by August 31st?
This is a risky, dynamic, and dangerous situation today. We're clear-eyed and mindful of those risks. But what we have made clear to the Taliban is if they interfere with the passage of any American, if they disrupt our evacuation operations at the airport, they will be met with a swift and forceful response.
For more on this, let's bring in David Morey and Jeff Mason. David is a task force leader and member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He also served as a special advisor to the Department of Homeland Security during the Obama administration. And Jeff is a White House correspondent for Reuters. David, let's start with you. In an interview with ABC News, the president essentially said that the U.S. could not have withdrawn from Afghanistan without any chaos. What's your assessment of that statement? And is there anything that could have been done differently to prevent the current situation?
Yeah, I mean, I very respectfully disagree with the president, who's I'm a big fan of and I advised during the campaign. There's no easy, good way to lose America's longest war. And we all know, we fans of military history, one of the most dangerous points in any military maneuver is retreat. And so this thing is really tricky right now. We could have hostages. We have to get out. You know, right now we've gotten about 7,000 or 8,000 people out of Afghanistan. If you include the families, the European, the translators, it's like more like the Saigon evacuation of 130,000 people. So this thing is going to be a real challenge for the administration. Gets to the core of competency. And let me make a quick point. This is a 4-administration fold. Everyone's gotten this wrong. There's no good way to do this. I think the president made a defensible decision. It just was wrongly executed. The right strategy, the wrong execution.
And David, I want to dig more into that. But Jeff, I want to bring you in on something that you just heard David say. He compared it to the fall of Saigon, and President Biden had been insisting that it was unlikely that the Taliban would overrun Afghanistan and that we wouldn't have a Saigon-type situation. But intelligence assessments said something much different. What more can you tell us about this? And does it appear that the Biden administration was ill-prepared to deal with the reality of the situation?
Well, a couple things on that. President Biden actually addressed it partially in his interview with ABC, in which he conceded that intelligence did show that the Taliban would likely take over the country. He just made the point that they did not expect it to happen as quickly as it did, perhaps by the end of this year. That, however, is not what he said about a month ago. He said it was unlikely broadly that the Taliban would take over. So there is certainly a contradiction there. There are now more reports coming out that not only did intelligence suggests that this would happen, but that there was a State Department cable, according to the Wall Street Journal, showing or suggesting that it would happen even faster than others have said. So I think the administration is feeling and will continue to be under pressure about the intelligence and about what information they used to make the decision that they did at the time that they did with regard to withdrawal.
And David, let's talk more about the evacuation efforts. What more do you think the U.S. government needs to do to get people, both Americans and those that risk their lives for our troops, evacuated from Afghanistan quickly and safely? And do you think that enough is being done, in particular, to help that latter group?
Well, I think now they're beginning to ramp up. We obviously should have been doing this months and months and months ago. That's part of the planning failure here. We'll have plenty of time in an after-action report. Historians will be looking at what went wrong here. You know, what we have to do now is continue to secure the Kabul airport, continue to protect that perimeter. We may need to bring even more troops in while we do that. And we've just got to get these people out. You know, this is such an existential challenge, I would say, if not crisis, for this administration. I know the American people support this. I know there's a really strong argument for withdrawal from Afghanistan, but not in this way. So we have to make good at protecting the people that helped America. Our credibility and reputation is on the line. Look at Germany. Look at the United Kingdom. We're getting a lot of unusual criticism from those allied nations on this subject. We got to get this one right. We got to protect those people.
And Jeff, I want you to join this conversation on this point as well, because the president said more than 10,000 Americans remain in Afghanistan. But many are finding it difficult to pass Taliban checkpoints as they make their way to their airport in Kabul. It's even worse, as we understand it, for Afghan nationals. So how is the administration handling this?
Well, indeed. I mean, with regard to the checkpoints, that's making it difficult, it sounds like, for anyone to get to the airport, although the president did make a point in that ABC interview of saying that it was remarkable to some extent that the Taliban were allowing Americans to leave. And he repeated his threat that if the Taliban did not do that, then the U.S. would strike with enormous force. So I can't speak to how that's working at the checkpoints. Certainly it is tricky, or particularly tricky for Afghans to get through those checkpoints, but it is clearly on the administration's radar and another one of the challenges that they face, particularly with the deadline of withdrawing troops entirely by the end of this month.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because, as you know, President Biden is now suggesting U.S. forces could stay in Afghanistan past that August 31st deadline, Jeff. So how are evacuation efforts driving that decision?
Well, he made clear in that ABC interview that when pressed, I think it's important to note that if there were not all if not all American citizens who were in Afghanistan were out by the end of the month, then he would leave troops longer in order to make that happen. But as the clip that you just played of Jake Sullivan speaking to Norah O'Donnell showed, the administration thinks it can happen between now and the end of the month. And I think that they, to some extent, Jake may have been trying to clean up a little bit after the president's comments with that. That said, what he said is, came out of the president's mouth. And so his commitment, as articulated in that interview, is to stay as long as necessary to get Americans out. But clearly they don't want to stay much longer, and they're under pressure and they're in a hurry.
David, as promised, I want to get back to this moment and the historical context for it. As you said, what we're seeing unfolding right now is a result of decisions that span 4 different presidencies. But what's happening now rests on President Biden's shoulders. So how do you think that this moment will define his presidency?
Well, I think there are 2 theories. One, the American people very much in dramatic polling numbers want out of Afghanistan, and they've been hearing the reasons why we need to do that over multiple decades. And we know that foreign policy issues don't come into midterm elections, presidential elections. That's one argument, that we'll forget about this. Another argument, which I'm a little more sympathetic to, is this is an existential challenge for this administration because it gets to the issue of competence. What defined Joe Biden was getting those vaccines distributed, getting the American Rescue Plan in order, getting an infrastructure plan passed, bipartisan and then another. If he fails on this issue of competence, I think he loses a lot of traction. And remember, retreat is the most dangerous part in any military maneuver. We could have hostage situations. We could have all kinds of terrible things playing out on the news here. This is exactly what the administration didn't want to happen, and now it's facing that challenge.
All right. David Morey and Jeff Mason, thank you both.